hey there guys, and welcome back. On this week's show, we're making some butter paddles. Now, very recently on the show, we had a bit of fun with Kilner's butter churner and we made some homemade butter. And during that process, I used butter paddles to squeeze out the buttermilk and to form my block of butter. And I've received several messages, several emails, several comments asking, where can we get some of the butter paddles? Where did you get yours? Etc., etc. Truth be told, I made mine. And guys, we all have a skill set here, and while these are commercially available, there's no reason why we can't make our own. And that's what we're going to do today. And it all starts off with just a little bit of scrap stock. Well, you want to make these paddles out of a hardwood, something with a tight grain, something like, in my case, maple. So I checked up in the rack and I had this old scrap of 3/8 thick maple, and this is what we're going to use. So the very first thing that we're going to do is I want to take this over to the table saw, and we're going to cut two blanks that are 7 inches long and 2 3/8 of an inch wide. Well, the first thing I want to do is I want to put a center line on each one of our blanks. So we'll just put a mark there at 1 3/16. We'll actually do it from both sides, just in case we're not exactly 1 or 2 3/8 wide. This way we'll know, and you can see those lines don't line up. So this is probably a little bit smaller or just a little bit larger than, but we can devise that in the middle here will be our center line. So we'll put that center line on each one of our blanks. And now, using a circle template right at one end, we're going to place a 1 1/4 inch diameter circle. Now, from that same end that we drew the circle, what we're going to do is we want to place a mark at 3 inches in from the end, square across our paddle. And from the edges of our 1 1/4 inch circle, we can draw a square line from the edge of the circle up to our line at 3 inches. And then, using a 3/4 inch circle template, we are going to just round off this inside edge, just like this, just to give a smoother transition between our handle and the edges of our paddle. So the last bit of layout here on our piece is I want to place a mark in the end grain here, all the way along, starting at the center point and marking at 1/8 increments all the way along. Now, we have to do a little bit of routing in this project. So we're going to take it over to the router table, and let me show you what I've got in mind. Well, I have a 1/8 diameter round bottom groove bit or straight bit placed in here. If you don't have one of those, you don't have to use that. Anything that you can use to get grooves in this is just fine. But what we're going to do, I have this raised at 1/16 of an inch above the table. And I'm using stops on my router fence. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with this edge one. And we're just going to run it through until it reaches the stop and then lift it off of our piece. And I'll show you what we get at that point. Okay, something to keep in mind. Before you start routing, make sure you tighten your fence down. Let me try that again. and you end up with that one groove on the one side. But now we need the symmetrical groove on the other side. Well, we don't have to move our fence. What we need to move is our stop blocks. So this one here, what I've done is I've placed a little mark here to the left of the stop block to mark where it goes so I can reset it. You can see it right there, and we'll just move this out of the way. This one here now, I have placed a mark over here, and this will allow my block of wood to be placed against the stop block and lowered down onto the spinning bit pretty much at the same position that this one ended. And from there we can lower it down on the spinning bit and follow through all the way with the cut to get the symmetrical groove. And there you have one groove on either side. Well, now we need to reset our fence using our marks here. However, I don't want to use the next 1/8 mark. By doing that, these two will blend together. It makes too much of a mess. So I'm going to move over to the next mark in place, and then we will do the exact same thing that we just did. We're going to run it through for this groove, and then change our stops and run it through for the opposite side. So we can start off by setting our fence. And then we have our marks up on our scale here. We will reset our left stop block, and we'll run it through for the one pass of the next groove. Okay, and now we can move this left stop out of our way, bring the right stop up to the mark that we placed here on our scale, and we'll do the same thing. We're going to let this sit here against the stop block, drop it down to the spinning bit, and then run it through for the pass. And with that done, we're going to keep repeating the process. We're going to move our fence, set it to not the next line, but the one after it, reset the fence, reset our stops, make the two passes. Reset the fence, reset the stops, make the two passes, until we get even grooves all the way across on our butter paddle. Now guys, I've done it thus far without any push pads, but as I get closer to the fence, that exit of that bit is a little too close for me. So I'm going to be using push pads from here on in. You guys have seen how it's done, so please don't take risks. I'm not comfortable getting much closer to the bit than what I am right now. If you're not comfortable with it, use what you have to use to separate your fingers from the bit. And there you go. There are the grooves in your paddles. Now guys, you want to be careful at this point in time because this is maple. Those sharp, crisp corners here are like little razors. We're going to deal with that in just a little bit. But the first thing that I want to do here before we do anything else is we're going to take this over to the scroll saw and cut around the perimeter of our handle. If you don't have a scroll saw, that doesn't mean you can't do this. You can use a coping saw, a fret saw, you can use your band saw. You can, if you want, use an oscillating drum sander and sand all the way around here and take all that material out of there. Do whatever you need to do to get this cut. For me, I'm going to use the scroll saw. And at this point, we're going to do a little bit of hand sanding. We're going to knock this sharp corner off here. We're going to knock off all of these sharp edges all the way along. All of these sharp edges around here. If we want, we can take this to the belt sander and clean this up, give a better transition than what is already there. We can also, if we want, round these corners and these corners here. That's up to you. It's personal preference. But these are something you're going to be holding in your hand. So any sharp bits or any sharp edges could be a hazard to you. So round it all off, sand it all up, remove all your pencil lines, and at that point, well, there's not much more to do. And once you have them smoothed out and you're happy with it and it feels good in your hand, no sharp edges, for me, the only thing I'm gonna do here with these ones, I'm gonna add a little bit of a fun laser embellishment on each of the handles, and then I'm going to give them a coating of cutting board coating, and that is nothing more than a specific mixture of mineral oil and paraffin wax. I have a video that shows you how to make that. I'll post a link to that down below. But give this a coating of that mixture and your paddles are done. And there you have it. Butter paddles. Guys, this project could not be more simple. It is stock that is 3/8 of an inch thick that has grooves in it. Those are the only two critical elements of this project. And in fact, even the thickness of 3/8 of an inch is not critical. The grooves are the important part. They are the channels that allow you, as you're forming your homemade butter, they're the channels that allow the buttermilk to drain away so that you can get as much of that out of there as you can. The more buttermilk you get out of your butter, the better your butter will be. And it takes a bit of practice to use them, forming and squishing and moving and manipulating, but you will eventually get it. Don't get frustrated. Just keep at it. You will get it and get comfortable with it. Feel free to modify the project, guys. If you want a thicker paddle, make a thicker one. If you want deeper grooves, do deeper grooves. If you want a bigger handle, do bigger handles. You want a hole in it to mount it on the wall, put a hole in it. It is completely up to you what it is that you do with this. And honestly, truth be told, you don't even really need them to make homemade butter. You can form it with your hands and squish it and squeeze it and get that buttermilk out. But the paddles do, for one thing, they make it a lot less messy. And second of all, they do allow it to drain a little better with those channels rather than squishing it in your hand kind of thing. So guys, whatever it takes for you to get this done is not important. No matter what method you use to make the grooves, no matter if the grooves are crooked or whatever, it doesn't matter. The size of the paddle doesn't matter. What matters is that if you are interested in making butter and you want a set of these paddles, what matters is give it a go and make your own instead of purchasing the store-bought ones. Guys, I want to thank you so much for tuning in this week. I want to thank you for your questions asking about the paddles. It gave me an opportunity to bring the method to you here today on the show, and I hope that you've enjoyed what I've brought you. If you haven't already, please consider liking and subscribing to the channel. You click the bell and then you're not going to miss the notifications of future episodes of the show. Guys, I hope that you've enjoyed today's content. I hope you're going to try this for yourself if you're interested in making your own butter. And more importantly, I hope you're going to join me again next week when I bring you yet another woodworking video.